What's up guys, Happy Droid here. I'm back again with the Flux 2. Now before I repair this device by replacing the battery, I wanted to show you guys what this device does. Are they being honest with you when they're trying to sell this device to you? What kind of parts are inside here? And all that kind of fun stuff. So basically what this device does is it actually has two time-of-flight sensors, one on this side, one on that side. So when you put your hand on one side, green would indicate a yes kind of answer, and on the other side there's a red, which will kind of indicate a no answer. As you notice, when I put my hand further or closer, the pitch of the audio is changing, so that kind of gives you an indication of how far something away is from the sensor. So if you do have this on the floor and nothing is near it and it's sitting doing all this kind of fun stuff, that would be very strange. It would be very strange because these sensors typically are quite accurate, and what they do is basically it fires out a little infrared beam. You can see the two little squares on here. So an infrared laser is firing out one side and it's then being captured on the other side, and what that does is it gives an accurate reading of distance, hence why when I put my hand closer or further away is changing the pitch. Now, handy enough to note with this device is it does have various range detection zones. So it has 4. So when you turn this dial, you'll see the colors change. So that's kind of green is the minimum, which I believe is up to a foot, and it kind of grows as you change the dial setting. So purple I believe is the maximum, and so you basically have 4 different zones you can play with. And what that basically does is if you're in quite a small tight space, you don't want to basically have that on the maximum setting because it will give false readings by bouncing off the wall. I'm going to turn this off at the minute because it will just keep beeping because I'm in quite a small space. Even on the minimum setting it does beep. So yeah, it does have 2 of these sensors, 2 rangefinder sensors, and it also has a little thermistor at the bottom there, so it does detect environmental temperature changes as well. How well it does that, I don't know. I'm not going to go hook this up to the, it does have a little Arduino inside. I'm not going to go hook that up because I've tested the function. It does seem to do as the creator's stating, so I don't have any incline to go and check out what it's actually doing. No doubt I could probably find that out, but it is doing what it's saying on the tin. Basically, I have tested the sensor. I put my finger there and eventually it did detect the raise in temperature and it did notify me. So it is kind of doing what it's saying on the tin. Now, do these sensors detect ghosts? Do they detect spirits? When it comes to any type of sensor, there is no real fact that ghosts can manipulate any type of sensor. If they can, certainly this would go off, and if nothing's near it and it's sitting doing the beep 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 beep, and clearly nothing is near it, nobody's walking about it and stuff like that, these sensors are accurate enough that they shouldn't really be going off by themselves. I've used them in the past, not put them in devices, but I've played around with them. They seem quite accurate, quite stable. There's nothing for me to suggest that this would false positive itself, if that makes sense. Most of you guys are probably using this in the field. It probably does nothing the whole entire investigation unless you kind of walk past it or something's in the way. So yeah, I've no problem with it creating false positives or anything like that because of the type of sensor. I know what type of sensor's in here. I would argue the fact if spirits can manipulate it, that's a whole different story. So yeah, off the bat, it is doing what it's saying on the tin. We're going to go over to the website and take a look at basically what they say about this device. So, oh yeah, I wanted to also show you the type of sensor was in here. Here it is here. It basically has 2 of those little rangefinder sensors. You can go and check out the number of the part and go and look for it yourself. It's basically a little range time of flight sensor. You can go and check out what that does if you like. Anyway, I'm glad to see they've changed a lot of the original listing. Before it was a bunch of wobbly donk, spirits do this, that, the typical type of listings. But I'm glad to see they've took all that out and they've tried to kind of keep it factual, more realistic, and you're going to know what you're buying. It's not misleading in any type of way or shape or form. That was another thing I had a problem with, and I'm glad to see they've addressed that as well. They seem to have definitely took it on board a lot of the stuff, because as we know in the last video, the build quality has certainly improved as well. So glad to see that in fact they're actually doing things, you know, in a proactive way. So I'm just basically going to scroll down. So this is basically just a little overview. If you want to go look at the Flux 2 on the page, go and look at it. But I'm not seeing anything that I'm unhappy with or anything like that. The only thing I kind of had a problem with, it's not really a problem because it can kind of do that, as where it describes it's a kind of motion sensor. I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, the Flux the Flux device includes 2 highly sensitive infrared laser motion and distance sensors. Now these explicitly are not kind of motion sensors, if that makes sense, but if something does move past it, I guess that could kind of work in that way, but they're not explicitly motion sensors. They're basically rangefinders, which is kind of true, kind of not. It can, well, I guess the way this is set up, if something moves past it, it will beep. So I kind of guess that does act like a motion sensor. So yeah, I don't really have a problem with that. Initially I was like, you know, but yeah, I guess that's probably true. It does also have the temperature sensor in here, which is nice. So it will tell you of environmental changes as well. It gives you basically how you can kind of use this device to control the conversation. So basically, if something does kind of mess with this, you can ask questions and stuff like that. You know, the usual stuff. Can you give me a yes answer, no answer? To basically just try to establish if there's any kind of intelligent kind of responses happening. As I said, with any device, we don't know if spirits can actually manipulate this stuff, but if it does appear to do that, that would be kind of somewhat evidence if it did. So this is just some suggestions here, how to use it, stuff like that. And here we're going to the depth about the motion zone. So I believe they've recently changed this. This is why it's a Flux 2. I'm not sure what they used in the old version. I don't actually know. But it does indeed have motion zones. I've tested it on the lowest setting. It is about a foot. When you change it to the orange setting, it does get a little bit longer. And on the maximum setting, it does detect for a fair distance. It's also showing here that typically what you would do when you're investigating, you want to keep away from the device. Typically out of the zones, like it's shown here. You don't want to be hanging about in this area because you will false positive. It will basically set it off. So you need to kind of be away from, you know, standing in front of it or standing behind it, because it only really kind of detects when you're in the kind of lateral zones here. So yeah, it's nice that they're showing that out. And basically this kind of shows you the range selection. It is fairly accurate. I've tested it. It is saying what it says on the tin, and it does state here about the 3D printing stuff. You know, when you're 3D printing stuff, it doesn't always come out the same as the next one. Every single device will have slight different defects or slight different you know, print styles. You can't print everything exactly the same. So basically what they're trying to do is cover from, you know, the images. Oh, my device doesn't look like that. Well, it does say in the bottom there that it is a 3D printed item, and you know, there might be subtle changes or differences in the design. So that basically just covers that. So yeah, all good, all fair and well. Nothing really, you know, wobbly donk about this listing. I'm glad to see they have changed a lot of the things, and also the design inside here. So yeah, kudos for me. It certainly has improved a lot, and I certainly have took on board certainly the points from the last one I did of this. And yeah, all good to see. The only problem I have with devices is if they can actually be used for spirit communication, things like that, because we don't actually physically know if devices can even do that or anything like that. And I'm glad to see they didn't put that kind of wobbly donk thing on there. You basically know what you're buying. You know that if you put your hand here, it's going to act to that. And obviously if nothing's around the area, that would be very strange. It doesn't mean it's, you know, spirit interference or anything like that. It just means that is very strange. So yeah, all good to see. What is actually in this device is, it's not, I don't have the exact parts here, but I'm going to show you what's in here just to give you an example. It has one of these little on-off potentiometers. That's this thing here. Obviously it has a little knob cover as well, so when you turn it on, it turns the device on and off, and you can adjust the setting. So it has one of those little things. Also has a little charge control board, one of these little doohickeys, and has a battery. Obviously the battery in here is a different type, but it does have a battery. I'm going to pretend that this is a thermistor. This is not a thermistor, but I would have a little thermistor in here. It does have 2 RGB LEDs, so it has one on this side, one on that side, and it has 2 little time of flight sensors, and it has a little Arduino Nano. Obviously it has a bunch of wires, things like that inside here as well, and stuff like that. So basically, in a nutshell, that's basically what it has inside it. How much that cost, I'm not 100% sure. I would guess about £40 worth of parts, if you're including the cost of the case, etc., etc. And also you need to consider that this is a business website. They obviously need to cover overheads, etc., etc. And I believe this device is, so in the UK, if you were to order that before shipping, it'll be £155.22. Is it worth it? That's again with devices. I don't have a problem with people selling devices or anything like that, or even if they're high cost or anything like that. It's entirely up to the creator. That the function of the device, you need to work out for yourself if you're willing to pay that kind of money for something like that. I'm not going to say otherwise. It's something I don't get involved in, is the pricing of devices. But to build this device, you're probably be looking at about 50 quid, £50 would be my fair assumption that this would be the cost to build this. Then you need to obviously factor in the tax, the shipping, all these other overheads, and I believe this is a physical shop as well, so they also have to cover bills from running the store, the shop, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm not surprised that it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive in my eyes. If I was to sell something like this, it would be roughly about the £100 mark. Am I going to build one? No, it's already available for you. You go buy it if you want. A lot of people asked if I want to do my own version of it. I certainly wouldn't use the same sensors, and I certainly wouldn't do it in the same way. I do already have an Oracle Yes No device, if you're interested in that. And that is simply it has the PRR motion sensors, also has the micropod thing as well. It's not as sophisticated as this, and that is obviously due to the price point as well. But yeah, I'm waffling on here. I'm just going to leave it there, guys, because I think I've covered enough. And basically that's it. Would I recommend it? If you can afford it and you're happy with what it does, I would certainly recommend it. There's nothing I would disagree with the listing or anything like that. Go ahead and buy one if you want one. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye then now.